Can we get a count now?
Are we live?
All right. Oh, we are live.
We are live.
Ladies and gentlemen out there in cyberspace, welcome to day one. Sammy Landsberger beside me for SuperFooty Live Trade HQ.
I can't wait. This is exciting, Sam. Innovation at its best. We're going to talk trade for 30 minutes every day for about a month.
It's going to be right here in the SuperFooty bunker, a half hour of power, if you like. I feel like we're at Fight Club. Let's get ready to rumble style with this big microphone in front of us. Have a look at that sucker.
Outstanding, Mike. And trade period doesn't even start the Monday, but we've already got some player movement.
Yeah, we have. Of course, free agency window opens today, so we've had some free agency moves, Samuel. And worst kept secret in football, Jared Waite, folks, has signed, sealed, and delivered and unveiled North Melbourne as we speak, Sammy.
Speaking of Arden Street right now, not the biggest kept secret if you believe Mick Malthouse. So he didn't have a sniff of it last week when Wadey was around for dinner, but I think we all expected it to happen. Waite joins as a key forward. Good call, bad call.
We must be the only one who was blindsided because they were well down the path with Liam Jones. They were investigating Tim Membry as well. They've gone cold on Timmy, by the way, up in Sydney. But they'd been planning for Jared Waite's removal. I don't know what. Maybe Mick thought maybe him and Annette cook up a bit of lobster bisque might change Wadey's mind, but it hasn't worked, mate.
Maybe Annette needs to go back to cooking school. No, we won't whack her. But what do you make of the move? I mean, is this a good fit for North Melbourne? And obviously, preliminary finals this year, can that help them bridge the gap?
Yeah, well, obviously they think they're close, don't they? And Sean Higgins, we're waiting to hear confirmation from him, but that will certainly be North Melbourne on a lazy 4-year deal, $400K a year.
Can't believe that. Higgins is 27, I think. He's had every bone in his body broken. He's had more surgeries than anyone I can think of, and they've given him 4 years. Well, hats off to Sean Higgins and Bruce Cotter. Have got a magnificent deal, but North must say a lot of faith in him.
Now, Bruce Coder's worked absolute magic there. Now, Carlton were interested in Sean Higgins. Now, Brucey went to Carlton and said, this is the deal from another club, which we led to believe is North Melbourne. And that's when Carlton said, we're out of there. That's not for us. So they've pulled out.
A bit of talk earlier this week, there might be a mystery second club in the race for Higgins. I reckon that might have just been a bit of smoke and mirrors. This was North Melbourne. Absolutely. Yeah, a bit of fake interest there. It was always North Melbourne. I think this was tabled about 2 months ago. 4 years, about 1.6. Nice addition to the half-back line.
Folks, if you're just joining us, you're watching Trade HQ here at SuperFooty. This is going to be real loose, let's be honest. Anyone who walks past, we're just going to drag them into the torture chamber here. We're going to get to some of your questions as well, and we'll put them completely on the spot. We've got the third seat here behind us in the bunker, so we'll just simply plop someone in there. Whoever it is, Robbo, Ralphie, Mickey Warner, it doesn't matter. We've talked about Waite. We've talked about Higgins. James Frawley is the other free agent, the big fish, Sammy. Now, he's nominated Hawthorn. We're led to believe, though, that nothing official will happen today out of respect, of course, for the passing of Robert Flower, Sir Robert Flowers, who's known unofficially to the Demon supporters. But what a get that is for Hawthorn.
Unbelievable. And I spoke to a couple of the Melbourne players this morning. Even they didn't see this coming. Obviously, they all knew that Chip was on the way out. It wasn't really spoken about in the Demons change rooms this year. They all suspected Geelong, but that's probably just me reading what we were writing. And everyone in the footy world thought it was Geelong, 5 years, 2.5 mil. Hawks come out, win the premiership, and then sign him. It is the reverse week after last year's premiership. They lost Buddy, and now they've signed Chip.
It's an extraordinary deal, isn't it? And then you look at their backline. So we were all wondering, well, what now happens with Brian Lake? Bang, he was snapped up for a 1-year deal almost straight away within a couple of hours. I was actually talking to Brian's manager, asking him what the heck's going to happen to Brian Lake. And while we were on the phone, he had 3 missed calls from Graham Wright at Hawthorn saying, we want your man, so we're putting a release out. So I might have been holding things up a little bit. Ryan Schoenmaker's now also. Matt Spanger re-signed for 2 years only a couple of weeks ago. He's safe, a cult hero nonetheless. Ryan Schoenmaker's now. Yes. He's vowed to fight on.
Fascinating to read this by you this morning. Brave call. He wasn't in the side in this year's finals. He was exposed in the VFL Grand Final by none other than Liam Jones. And he's going to stick around and hopefully crack through even with Chip coming in.
So he's got a year to run on the contract. Apparently the exit meeting, or not the exit meeting, the review, end of season review meeting went well with him and Alistair Clarkson and company. So, look, another year to go. He stays to fight on. If you're Hawthorn, maybe you just keep him. I mean, if he's happy, young, Lake won't be around forever. Gibson won't be around forever. Good skills. I'll play devil's advocate. Can play both ends.
He can play both ends. That's what interests me. He can play as a forward. I think his return game this year against the Saints, he might have kicked 3 or 4. Looked good up for that day. So, I mean, he's got currency. I think he wrote this morning that it's a frightening back line. I reckon that's a really good way to put it, because if Schoenmakers isn't in the side and then they put Chip in, and, you know, we saw what form Lake was in September, and Giray played really well there, sub in the grand final, had a good September as well. Burgoyne,
Good mix.
all Australians, every left, right, and centre.
Well, if the Bondi billionaires can't overcome it, what's it going to need? The Monaco billionaires or something else? I don't know what's going to roll the Hawthorn back line and crack it next year. The other free agent we wait to hear from, it's of note anyway, is Nick Melcheski at the Sydney Swans.
What do the Swans get for him? I mean, he's going to go as a free agent. Is that a second-round pick?
Well, it really depends on the length of the offer, the weight of the offer as well. And so their first pick isn't until, 17 it will
17 it is, which would be Isaac Heaney. Yep.
So if they get a mega offer from another club, then there's a potential maybe first round. You wouldn't have thought so, though, given the age and all that sort of stuff. The secret herbs and spices formula the AFL have got there. But big interest from West Coast for Melcheski. We know about Gold Coast, and there's another Melbourne club interested. It's not the Demons. That are interested in him as well. He's got a young family. The wife's from Perth. He's from Melbourne, obviously. What do they do? A lot of the family in Perth as well. So West Coast to be a nice fit, but he might end up staying put.
Well, what is it about that's attracting the interest? Why does he want to leave this outstanding club? I mean, obviously, they just missed out this year. They're going to be a fourth for many years to come. He was an All-Australian this year. Why?
Well, probably his last sort of most significant contract it will be, and clearly it's a monetary thing. He wants to look after his young family. I think they're waiting on Sydney. They've got the rival offers, if you like, at last check, which was yesterday. They're going to wait for Sydney to try and match that offer. Sydney, it must be said, have done the best they possibly can. Of course, Kohler have been stripped away. It's not like they're offering him reduced terms on the contract he was on. They're offering a little bump up as well. It's worth noting that obviously the salary cap goes up every year anyway, so he's going to get a small bump. But it's not an insulting offer. But they'll wait to hear from Sydney whether they can match it, what they can do. And if they can, then he stays. And if they can't, then he's most likely off.
He'd be a good fit at the Suns, wouldn't he? Just a bit of polish across that halfback line.
Him on one side, maybe McKenzie on the other.
Yeah, Cade Kolajasny coming through. They released David Swallow into the midfield this year. It's starting to get pretty scary up north.
They're the free agents that we know of at the moment. Possible trades. We're going through the list here. Christian Jacksh.
Yes.
One of the most sought-after youngsters in the game, it has to be said. What's the latest on him? Have you heard anything on Christian?
He's in Bali with his girlfriend at the moment, just weighing up a few things. I spoke to him last week, and he said he really was. His mind was just in a bit of a head spin. He was just weighing up what to do. He'd already made the call to come home, and it really was just weighing up where he could go, how he could possibly get there, and what club he'd be the best chance to get a game at, because that's what he's after. He's not impatient. He knows he's a big fella, and he's going to take time to develop. But he knew that the writing was on the wall at the Giants. I mean, there's just that many key position blokes ahead of him. It's a smart move to come home, but intrigued us around where he gets to. I think he wouldn't mind to play for the Blue Baggers.
He nominated the Blues.
Yes.
The Blues are dead keen,
but
there's a problem.
How do they get him?
I don't know how they get him. The Blues don't want to part with pick 6.
They certainly will not.
And the Giants aren't going to take pick 26, which is Carlton's second-round pick. So it's going to probably take a third party to get involved to get young Jack to Carlton.
But the thing on the Carlton side here is that they do have a little bit to work with. I think what the Lions might have a bit of interest in Mitch Robinson.
Yep.
Jeff Garlett's, getting not mass interest, but I think
there's a bit there.
The
Bombers have met with Jeffy.
Yeah.
Melbourne are interested in Jeffy. And maybe a third party comes in.
If they can package something up and get a pick in the teams, you'd think that should do the deal.
Pick 12, good size too, isn't he? I don't know a lot about Jack. I went through and had a look at good size.
Yeah, he sort of came through his draft year, sort of compared to Michael Hurley a bit, could play the end. I think he's probably at the Giants, he was developing more as a defender. He spent more of his junior career forward, but they sort of, they pigeonholed him more as a defender, can read the play really well. As you say, great size. Popular man around the club as well. So if the Blues can get him, would be a very, very shrewd addition.
Plenty more names to get through here. Beams, Lamumba, Ryder will go on, but we've got some questions coming in. I'm looking at our producer Al here. Tim Membry, hi boys. What do you think will be able to land the services of Tim Membry? Who will get him, if you like?
Oh, it shouldn't take much to get him across the line. I think Clarkey was writing that the Doggies and the Bombers might be keen. The Bombers were the first club to go out and speak to him in Terrelvin in his draft year. Nick Stevens, who coached him and obviously played a lot of footy with Brendan Mavola, reckons that Tim Membry is a better set shot than Fev. So that was a nice wrap.
Oh, we are live here.
We are live. We're going.
Sorry, it's only the wife. I'll screen that one.
The knock on Membry has been his size. He's a little bit under. I think he's about 189. Plays that Jack Darling type, but you'd think a third-round pick might get it. He slid out to 50s in his draft year. The Doggies keen, the Bombers keen. I think that's one which will probably get done a little bit later in trade period.
The Blues were really keen.
Yes.
And then just suddenly went, actually, no, we're not. We're cooling. So there you go. big enough to admit that perhaps they weren't as interested as what they initially thought.
I know it's not the B's and A's, but in the NEFL, or in the AFL,
he kicked a few bags.
I think he's kicked over 100 goals in his 2 years there.
Wow.
So he certainly knows how to find the sticks.
I reckon you could kick 10 in the NEFL as well. So. A couple more questions. Al, what one do you reckon? I've just seen Levi Greenwood out with Cochin and Hardwick in Richmond. Watch this space. Well, there you go. Bit of clandestine meeting activity apparently from the punters. Thank you for filling us in.
That staggers me. They've gone out. They've signed Waite today. They're going to sign Higgins in the next 72 hours. And Levi Greenwood is sitting there without a contract. He could finish top 3 in the best and fairest tonight. He's had a super year.
Is that them holding the club over a barrel?
Well, it just staggers me. I mean, he came through. He couldn't get a game for years. He was playing this tagging role. This year, he just goes whooshka, explodes, damaging midfield and kicking goals. And they can't sign him away.
Question here, why wouldn't the Pies go for Jacks? Well, that's a very good question. I have been burnt significantly by key forward acquisitions in the last couple of years, of course, with Lynch and company. But
they do have Darcy Moore coming
Moore coming in, father-son. That's a very good point. While we're on Collingwood, a bit of a stalemate for possibly the biggest trade of the whole window, which is Dane Beams heading to Brisbane to play with his brother Clay. Now, Brisbane wanted to offer pick 4. It's a bit of an ambit claim, isn't it? Because Brisbane admit pick 4, they would have been really lucky. Collingwood said get stuffed, and then Collingwood turned around and said we want pick 4, and we want one of. I'll go through it here. Rockcliffe, Zorko, or Aish, and your pick 4. So Brisbane naturally scoffed at that. They weren't going to offer that up. So there's been a bit of I guess, not a peace pipe. No daggers have been thrown. They're still talking, but it's cooled off a little bit. You speak to a few people, though, Sammy, and they believe that Collingwood are really clearing the decks for something big, salary cap-wise. So
really,
that might be a third-party classic one. We've heard about Dangerfield.
Yes.
There's all sorts of rumours about Paddy Dangerfield and meetings with various Collingwood players and lunches and all that sort of stuff. I tell you what, if they were able to somehow get him this year, that would be an absolute blockbuster trade to end all blockbusters.
And after months of negative publicity for Bucks and Eddie and what's going on at the Pies, if they could get that all that's washed out and they are the club of summer, it would be magnificent.
Another question filtered in a minute ago from Faye Munn. Thanks to you, Faye. How's this for a trade? Mitch Robinson and Kane Lucas to the Hawks and Luke Loudon or Ryan Schoenmakers to the Blues. Well, not as silly as it sounds, actually. The Blue Hawks, we're led to believe, had some interest in Robinson, whether that's ongoing, where they might be more interested in John O'Rourke. And the Brisbane Lions Robinson.
I'm not sure what appeal Kane Lucas would play for Hawthorn personally, but
that's a very good point.
It might be another cog in the Box Hill outfit, but that's probably his limit there at the Hawks.
And Luke Loudon does want to move on,
yes.
We're told. Frustrated for lack of opportunity, and it's very hard to blame him, actually.
Well, I mean, he'd be playing AFL footy at most clubs, yet at the Hawks, not even Jonathan Segler could get him for the premiership. Yeah. So he's well down the pecking order, so a move does make sense for Luke.
So Kane Lucas had a contract at the Blues, not necessarily on the trade table, they say, but of course, if anyone come nibbling, he would be gone. I can't see too many people coming and nibbling. We'll move through it. Lamumba and Collingwood and Melbourne. He's nominated Melbourne. You'd think this would fall pretty quickly.
Mitch Clark, pick 33. Switch from the Cats and the Days, and then the Days just flick that pick onto the Pies for Lamumba. Is it as simple as that? Or?
Well, I heard that maybe there was a deal struck in principle with Mitch Clark going to Collingwood and Lamumba going to Melbourne and swapping of a couple of picks. But then, of course, Mitch Clark threw a spanner in the works, said, I'm going to Geelong, so they had to go back to the drawing board. But every indication is that that'll be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you'd think so. Pick 33, we think is about right for Clark, given the complexities around him, and then obviously if pick 33 would satisfy Collingwood, Lamumba's a demon, so they could make it pretty straightforward.
Quick questions coming in. Mitch Clark for Taylor Hunt, a straight swap possibility?
No.
I reckon Taylor Hunt would they get rid of him?
He wants to go out. I mean, he wants to play more senior footy. He might be, you could package him in with that pick 33 and maybe doing a bit of an exchange later, but I can't see a direct swap there satisfying the Demons.
Okay, now something that isn't very straightforward is the move of Paddy Ryder to Port Adelaide. Now, Essendon notoriously one of, if not the absolute hardest clubs to deal with during the trade period. Everyone will tell you that. And I was speaking to an official at another club this morning who said, this has got next to no chance of actually happening. And if it happens, it'll be 5 minutes to the deadline when one of the sides blinks.
Well, I mean, you go back to last year. I think in the first 5 minutes of trade period, the Dogs said, here's our second round pick, number 25 and 26, wherever it was, give us Stuart Cranberry. And the Bombers said, no deal, no deal, no deal. On the last day, the Bombers said, deal.
Yeah.
So it's just there's a lot of bluffing that goes on down at Tullamarine, but you'd think on the surface, given again the issues surrounding the possible trade, pick 16 isn't that far off the mark.
Really? I'd want more if I was this. I know he's going to be 27 before the start of next season, but this is a guy who's just had the best year of his career, about to reach his absolute peak of his powers, and they're only going to get pick 16?
Yeah, do they really want another court issue should it go ugly? I mean, I know it is probably unders, and they probably in the finish will end up getting a bit more. I don't think it's too far off the mark. I don't think it's fair right now, but it shouldn't take a whole lot more to get it done.
And I think Essendon came knocking for other players as well, did they not? So they said, give us your 16. A bit like
Ollie Lyons and a Wingard or someone like that.
Ollie Lyons and Wingard will get the job done. A fat chance of that going to be happening. I tell you what, Port Adelaide get Paddy Ryder. They are right in, might be staying the obvious, premiership favouritism mode. I tell you, that'd be the one missing link, as good as Lobie was in the ruck. To have that sort of relief would be huge. Wait for some more questions to come in, but tell us, you've been spending a bit of time down at the draft combine. Sammy, we heard a bit from Christian Petracca this morning as well, the likely #1 pick. What's happening down there under the roof at Etihad?
Yeah, a bit of news this morning. One of the Irishmen, the internationals have actually dominated the testing so far, which is a bit worrying. And one of them, Conor McKenna, who is from the north of Ireland, and if you can understand half his words, you're doing better than I am, because I spoke to him last week and had to go through the tape a few times. But he's a really talented kid. He's really explosive. He's powerful. He loves the physicality of AFL, and he's just signed at the Bombers. Yeah. So he is an Essendon player. He goes in as a Category B rookie. So his salary will sit up outside the cap unless they put him on the senior list. I think he didn't do so well at this week's combine at Etihad, but they did some testing in Ireland not too long ago, and he was, I think, 0.1 off Stephen Hill's agility record. So we can dance around a fair bit. He's got a really nice sidestep. I think that's going to be a name which you're going to have to look out for in the years to come.
That was some of the beep times as well. So
16-1.
That's outrageous.
Can I describe a player to you and tell me what you think? His name's Caleb Daniel. He ran a 16-1 in the beep test. He was All-Australian. His last 3 games for South Australia were outstanding. He's an absolute ball magnet. And he impressed playing senior footy in the SANFL this year. Does that excite you?
That excites me. Not much of a tank. It excites me.
Now, there's one knock on him which might see him not get drafted.
Can't kick?
He's 167 centimetres. I reckon this is going to be a fascinating story.
Well, how many players have we seen?
He's 173.
So he's 6 centimetres smaller than Louis Taylor.
I think he would go in as a. That's going to be a fascinating one, and he's just done everything right this year. His carnival was outstanding.
So have you got a read on where he's sort of?
Well, at the carnival, I spoke to a couple of clubs after he started playing these blinding games, and they still said, rookie at best. And since then, he's played senior SANFL footy. He was named All-Australian. He's killing draft camp. Surely he gets a pick, and he's just shaping as one of those ones which he's going to go late, and clubs are going to live to regret it, you might suspect.
We'll get back to trade and free agency. A question coming into the Blues get for compensation for Jared Waite. They will. Carlton are expecting anyway a pick in the 3rd round for Jared Waite, for what it's worth. An early one here as well, going from the script possibly, from Johnny T. Do you think Merritt and Patford will find a home, and will they trade for draft picks or players? Well, Merritt's actually attracted quite a bit of interest. We know about Patford, but Merritt, interest from Melbourne, Western Bulldogs and Adelaide.
And I think Gold Coast might be in the mix as well.
For Merritt. Yes. And Patford, obviously, apparently by all reports, a really mature conversation, said, look, I've got 1 year to go. Post-footy, I'm going to go down and live in Sydney. So you can either try and get something for me now, up to you. If you don't, I'll hang around. I'll give my all for the last year of my contract, and then I'm going to move down there. So who knows? Something could happen. 3-way trade, the Beams deal on YouTube, Samboy.
We do. From David, we've got 1 out of 3-way trade between the Saints, Lions and Collingwood. Brisbane gives pick 4 and 24 or a player for pick 1, which is traded for Beams. So let's just go through that again. So the Lions would get Beams. They'd lose pick 4 and 24, and the Pies would get pick 1.
That's a pretty good deal for the Pies, isn't it?
Pick 1 for Beams. Yeah. And that's obviously going to be Petracca, which is the man we're all talking about down at Etihad Stadium. So Petracca for Beams. But the Pies, I mean, we've heard Bucks go on record. I think Derek Hines said the same. Yeah. They want to replace them for Beams. They don't want them stuffed up their list management. They don't want to leave a hole in the list. They want a ready-made replacement. So as good as that looks on paper, it's probably not, in fact, what the Pies are after.
Statement coming here from what we were talking about earlier from Jez. Caleb Daniel is this year's Lewis Taylor absolute jet. So it could be a bargain buy there, mate. Absolutely. Folks, if you just tuned in, you're, of course, watching us here at Trade HQ at SuperFooty. We will be doing this daily, Samuel, for half an hour throughout the trade and free agency period. What are the chances? This one from Tristan. We'll go with this, Sam Boy. What are the chances of Melbourne getting Paddy Dangerfield? 2 and 3 on the table.
Walking out next year, picks 2 and 3 seems like a fairly adequate compensation.
It is easily the most fascinating question of the trade period, this Paddy Dangerfield. The comments from Mark Rasciuto floored many people.
Where did that come from?
The willingness to trade him, if you like. Paddy, supposedly, if what you hear is correct, miffed by that and happy to stay in Adelaide, wants to stay in Adelaide, but thinks, geez, maybe I'm unwanted.
What I loved was from Paul Roos yesterday. Now, whether this is true or not, I don't know. But he basically said that until Roos said that, they hadn't seriously canvassed this. And Roo puts it on the agenda and they're thinking, hang on.
We'll give 2 and 3.
Well, see you later, 2 and 3. We'll get the best bloke in the comp in.
And you're right. If Adelaide, I think he's very much in the frame, Paddy Dangerfield, this year, by the way. If Adelaide do have an understanding or a whiff that he will go and could possibly go for nothing this time next year, well, I mean, you do that in a heartbeat, don't you?
They play finals will go close next year. They're going to get, about pick 12 for him. So as a free agent, so to get picks 2 and 3 or something else this year, it's a no-brainer if you think he's on the way out.
Another one here from sheet in front of me from Ty. Recent rumours suggested the Crows were to make a play for Jeremy Cameron. Has that fallen flat? Also, have you heard if there's any interest in Michael Talia from the Crows? Well, first on Jeremy Cameron, Mark Robinson, our colleague Samuel, wrote a piece earlier in the year that the contract talks are on hold. He's, of course, contracted next year. Absolutely fascinating. I don't know, though. He hails from Dartmoor, obviously, down here in Victoria. The club, there was a big ceremony down there this year. They renamed Dartmoor the Dartmoor Giants. So I don't know whether
Swans.
From the Swans. So I don't know if you actually then turn around and leave them after you've had your junior footy club named after the GWS side up there in Sydney. But look, I don't know about this one. This would be every club in the land would come for him. It would be like a Chris Judd-like proportion.
It would be unbelievable. The other one on Michael Talia. Didn't have the greatest year at the Doggies. I think obviously they probably struggled in the back line a bit, yet we saw Mark Austin getting games in the back end of the year ahead of Talia. So not in the biggest favour at the moment, but I think he'll stick around. I think he'll be a good long-term player.
Another question here, Jeff Garlett and Robert Warnock to either West Coast or Freo. Any chance of that happening? I think West Coast cooled on Jeffy Garlett. We talked about him earlier. He has met with Essendon. Melbourne supposedly have some interest in him as well. They're going to keep Robbie Warnock.
Are they?
They're absolutely going to keep Robbie Warnock. They actually believe, Carlton, they're a ruckman short. They say that most clubs at the point end of the ladder have 4 to pick from. They've only got 3. So they've got Cruiser obviously coming back, Warnock, and obviously Cameron Wood, the former Nova DJ, come good.
It would be the ultimate money ball if they punted him. Get Cameron Wood in on a rookie from Williamstown, pay him peanuts, and then ship off Warnock and free up some space. But obviously sounds like that's not in the pot works.
No, I think they'll be keeping Robbie Warnock, and they've invested a lot of time and money into doing so. Another question here, given the from Red Sinker, given the history of free agency compo, can a supporter of the Melbourne Footy Club please give me a reasoned argument into giving them pick 3 for Frawley? This would actually class him as a better player than Ablett. Red, hear what you're saying, Samuel. I know you probably agree with him too, but it's all dependent on what other clubs are willing to offer. That's the formula. It's not people sitting around the mahogany table saying, well, Frawley's better than Buddy Franklin, who Hawthorn got pick 19, or better than Gary Ablett. It's purely the money that he'll be paid and the length of the contract that he'll be offered by Hawthorn, which you think would be sizable. And
it's not quite the same comparison as Ablett because that was on a different system with the expansion clubs. I think the Cats did get 2 first-round picks for him.
I think people look at Buddy Franklin.
Pick 19, Frawley, pick 3. Colin Sylvia picked 22 or something. So it certainly when you look at it on the sheet of paper, it spits out some strange results. But
now you have your tentacles all over the Western Bulldogs, Sam, and there's a question here from Will Mack. Word on number 6 and Rovat to the D's in exchange for number 3.
Wow.
I haven't heard that one.
The Dogs are keen to slide up the draft order. They've got pick 5 at the moment. It will go to 6 if the D's get pick 3 for Frawley. I can't see them being too keen to trade Nathan Horovat. They'd much rather package up some picks to slide up the draft order, but that's definitely a priority. They want to move up from pick 6 or 5, into that pick 2 or 3 region so they can get one of those lovely key forwards on offer.
One of the early trade moves come Monday will no doubt be Liam Jones. What are your thoughts on Liam Jones? I think they've agreed in principle with the Blues for the 3rd round pick, which is 40-odd.
43 for Jones. That looks a fait accompli. And then it looks, I think, what's it, 63 for Tart.
King Tart, 4th round pick.
Yeah, good deals for Carlton in my eyes. Both players with 5 and 6 years development in them. Both have showed potential with inconsistencies. But if you're a Blues fan and you pocket Liam Jones and Jason Tutt, go back to round 13 this year and have a look at the Dogs win against Collingwood. Jones played the best game he's played, kicked 4, polled 2 Brownlow votes, and Tutt kicked the match winner from about 45 in the
But they seem happy to let them go, don't they, the Dogs?
I don't think they're too happy. Certainly not the club score. I think they certainly would have liked to keep both. I think they might have had a conversation with Tutt after he told them he wanted it out, trying to talk him around. But they didn't play him in the second half of the year, and that's probably contributed to their decision.
Folks, we're on day 1 here of Trade HQ, of course, at SuperFooty. Just a few minutes left on the Friday here at the Herald Sun. Question here from Paul, Sammy. Saints give pick 1, or it's a poser, really, isn't it? Saints give pick 1 for O'Rourke and Jacks and pick 3. So pick 1 for O'Rourke and Jacks and pick 3.
Yeah, the issue there is I think O'Rourke is probably going to go to the Hawks for pick 18 or 19, whatever it becomes, and Jacks wants to go to the Blues. But there's no doubt the Saints, this isn't talk. They are dead set keen to trade pick 1, and the Giants are
serious?
Oh, absolutely.
Keen, or they figure we've got nothing to lose if we throw it out there?
Keen.
Wow.
Yeah, because they think if they can get a pick 3 back, that they might end up getting the same bloke they take a pick 1 anyway.
Why would they do that exactly, do you think, when it's just your classic stereotypical rebuild?
Well, Petrarca's the best player in it.
Yep.
The Saints need a key forward. So if you can get a key forward and something of serious value, as a package, it's probably a better deal. And the Giants on the flip side, I think this time last year, we all knew that they were absolutely in love with Josh Kelly. Tom Boyd was clearly the number 1 player, so they did the deal to get pick 2 as well, and they got both. This year, Sauce loves Petrarca, and they do anything to get pick 1 to secure rights to him. So might be something similar in the pipeworks, but I don't think it'll play out just like that, Paul.
Okay. There's one here from Roof Fan off the sheet that sent in earlier. As an North fan, I don't see why we're chasing Jared Waite. Inconsistent. We have plenty of other tall forwards. The emergence of Brown, he was fantastic this year. Young Wood showing a lot of promise, and Tarrant, who was off injured. I'd much rather Lumumba and Frawley. But what are your thoughts on them chasing Waite and Higgins from a North point of view?
I like it. I mean, it's a good Nick Dalsan. If they players, these two help them bridge that.
They clearly think the time is now, don't they?
Absolutely.
They clearly think they're close. Waite, it would be a pretty fascinating forward line, wouldn't it?
And the other part is they're not giving up anything to bring those blokes in. They are giving up peanuts. All they're doing is paying, and Waite's not going to cost them too much. It's a 2-year deal.
It's a risk, but you've got to take a risk, and that's the whole reason they could get him out of Carlton. I mean, a bloke who, the son of Vin, a club great, he's been there for 13 years. Chris Judd said you'd be a footy orphan if you left. They put enormous pressure on him.
Yep.
We talked about Nanette's lobster biscuit in an attempt to keep him big Malthouse East Melbourne apartment townhouse there. So he wasn't going to go easily. Carlton's offer was 1 with a trigger for a second, and we believe that trigger was around the 14-game mark, which history says he's had trouble reaching. So you can't blame Jared Waite possibly for taking it, can you?
And Brad Scott's best look at Jared Waite this year. I think he kicked 8 goals against him, so that might have helped him just tick the box.
He turned it on. Time for 1 or 2 more. This one from Bowie. Would any teams be interested in Ty Vickery for a swap of first-round picks?
His name's gone a bit quiet lately. There was a lot of talk mid-year, especially when he was Florentine Cox at one stage. But
that's because Richmond, I think, have just got no interest in trading him whatsoever.
And they have re-signed Ben Gristis as well, I think. So it looks like they're going to keep all those big blokes together. And
I'm sure people will be interested, but I think I heard Dan Richardson in an interview the other day saying, look, players who can play ruck, players who can play forward, there's not a lot of them. We put a lot of time and effort. So has been a bit of a whipping boy at Richmond over the years, but they're going to keep him as well. Another question here from Jess. We've got time for a couple more here at Trade HQ. Is anyone still after Sam Reid from the Swans? Well, the answer is yes. Sam.
Yes, definitely. I think the Doggies spoke about that yesterday. They've got picks 25 and 26 should the Higgins conversation come that way. They'd obviously be a keen suitor. I think he's
keen to stay, though, isn't he?
I think so. You look at his grand final, though, and you know he didn't have a great day. Got shifted to the back line, didn't do much there. So he's got currency now.
Spade a spade. It was a stinker.
It was a shocker.
It was a shocker.
So he's got currency, but you'd suggest he'd probably stay.
Maybe one more here from Daffis. I hope I pronounced that right, Daffis. Who could be the Victorian club in for Melcheski? Well, it's a very good question. I did try to find that out yesterday.
It's not the Demons. We know that.
We know it's not the Demons, and it wasn't coming. So we guess that one until the cows come home, but I wasn't going to be told, and they weren't going to offer it up. Really fascinating with that one. I think we'll check today whether Sydney can match the rival offer, the best offer, whether that's from West Coast or whether it's from Gold Coast. But that's it, Sammy.
Beautiful. Beautifully done.
Thanks,
Trade
guys.
HQ. Stick around for the next 4 weeks or so because we'll have all the news live at Super Footy right here from the Trade HQ bunker.
See you then, guys.
Cheers.
Speak to you soon.